So we're gonna create 4 composition thumbnails for your 1-point perspective drawing. And you're gonna pick your favorite to make a larger pen drawing of. So you can do these of 4 different locations. They can all be the same location with different angles. You can have different size compositions, but I do want you to have these squares or rectangles worked out on your paper, and at least 4 of them. Of course, you can always do more. So you're going to choose a place to draw, and it has to have 1-point perspective and or aerial perspective in each image. So this should be a place that you are comfortable with, that you maybe walk by every day or that you visit often. It can be an interior, or it could be the outside of a building in 1-point perspective. It can be a road in 1-point perspective. It can be a landscape. So whatever location that you choose, you can take photos of it. And if you're going to take photos because you want to go back and work inside, if it's someplace outside or it's someplace you don't want to just sit and draw, just make sure to take photos from a lot of different angles. And when you're photographing it, you're creating a composition, right? So you can test out different compositions just while you're actually taking the photograph. And then when you get home or wherever you're going to end up drawing, you can choose the best compositions and you can adjust them if you want. So the most important thing is that you're using your own photos if you are working from a photo, or you're working from life in person, which is great. And the reason for this is, well, there's 2 big reasons. The first is that you're more connected to the place. If you've seen it in real life, you've really studied it and you understand all the parts of the location. Because in a photograph, some things get lost. Like, for instance, any shadow can just turn all black, and the black just looks like a flat blob in a photograph, where in real life the shadow would have a lot going on, so you might not see there's another building there or there's a sidewalk there that might be hidden in the photograph. And then another big reason is that it's copyright free, right? If you just go to Google and get a photograph of a landscape or a cityscape, that image is going to have a copyright on it. And even though if you're looking at the photo and drawing your own drawing of it, that drawing still infringes on the copyright. So if you try to sell your drawing of someone else's photo, if you try to sell it, that would be illegal. Now, this is school and you're practicing, and you might never put these images up on the internet or to sell, but if you were to share it on your social media or on YouTube, that could cause a problem if the photographer decided they didn't want you using the likeness of their image. That's their intellectual property. And the reason is because the photographer has taken time to create that composition. So you don't need to worry about this too much, but I do want you to be aware of it and to get in good habits of creating your own compositions, taking your own photos, so that when you do become a famous artist and are selling your work, you can get all the proceeds and not worry about getting sued. So make sure to take your time with these. You're going to choose one to make a final drawing of. So like I said, you can do all of the same location. It can be 4 different locations. Just each one should have a different composition. So if it's of the same location, make sure there's different angles and make sure you're getting that 1-point perspective and or the aerial perspective in there. So both of mine are going to have 1-point perspective, and one has, the landscape has a little aerial perspective. So I'm going to start with this cityscape, which I took this photo on a trip to Ireland, where my family is from, and it's in Galway. So what I'm doing is I'm just looking at this river that goes out into the ocean here, and I'm looking at the angles and trying to see what they look like, the top of the buildings, right? And I think I made that too close. So what we can kind of do is figure out where the vanishing point is for this. And you know, every drawings can have its own vanishing point and you can sort of make it up, but I'm gonna help you. I'm not making it up, but I'm like using my best guess. And of course you could print out the photo, but I'm doing this just in case, like if you're in person and you're drawing it in person. So this is where the houses would be. I'm just like lightly sketching where these buildings are and the angle I'm seeing. I'm seeing this tall building here, and I'm gonna mark this for like that tall building. And then I'm gonna kind of mark this for the long building. So I just have like an idea of what, I'm giving myself some guides, right? And I'm looking at this angle. I'm looking at the negative space here, which there's a lot more sky than in my drawing. But just like what we've been doing, I'm looking a lot at the negative space. And I think that I'm looking at this shape here, this triangle shape. And I think that's a little more steep. So what I can do is I can start to think about where all these points meet would be my vanishing point. And it's probably off the page, right? So what I like to do is get a piece, this is just a piece of computer paper folded in half, and I'm going to tape it onto my table here. And this is like a triangle ruler, which can be really helpful if you get super into perspective or drawing, because look, this can make a perfect right angle, and I can use it from the, you know, from the side of my my outline here. So anyway, what I do with this is I make some marks here so I know where to line it up with the paper in case I need to move it off. And then I'm using my ruler to kind of get the angle. This seems like the right angle. And I'm gonna draw it on here. I'm gonna get the roof angle. Yeah, these should be parallel, so that's why I'm looking at that. I think it's somewhere like that. And then this angle, kind of get it. Let's see if that's looking right. So that would make this right here my vanishing point. And I'm just kind of checking these angles, and I think they look pretty good. Vanishing point. So you can do this on a large scale. Like I've had drawings where I have them fold out. So it's like multiple pieces of paper folded if my vanishing point is way, way off to the side. And it can really help, especially if you're doing a lot of this kind of architectural stuff and buildings. So I'm gonna just start going from my vanishing point and getting this little edge of the sidewalk in, or the edge of the, whatever it is, the cement block that had no railing. And I was with my nephews, my 9-year-old nephew, who I was afraid was gonna just jump in that water. But he didn't, we made it. Okay, so I'm using my vanishing point, and this is kind of, there's like another wall or something here. And then this comes out further than the houses do. So I think the house ends kind of here. And so with stuff like this, there's a lot going on with these houses. There's all the different roofs and everything. You can use your artistic license to make this a little bit simpler. So here's my tall building that I'm gonna do up here. And then I know that the straight lines are all gonna be parallel. So I'm using my right angle triangle, which you can just use a piece of paper or any straight edge to make these lines parallel. So here's 1, and here is 2. And then I'm gonna have this roof kind of come here. And some of the buildings are smaller and some are taller. So there's one in here that's a little bit smaller. I'm gonna make the bottom part of the roof also. And that's looking okay. And this actually, the more I'm looking at it, the more I see that it does have some atmospheric perspective too. So this is that. And you know, I am kind of making up the angle of the roof here because this would actually have another vanishing point, which we don't need to get into multiple vanishing points for this project. We're really just learning how to get the basics of perspective so you can start making drawings that have more realistic 3D elements. So I do know that all these vertical lines are going to be parallel, and then these horizontal lines here are going to be to the vanishing point. So, you know, I'm just making it my best guess for what that would look like. And then there's another house up here that is taller, and it looks like it's maybe set back a little bit. So I'm going to draw it up here and then find the roof line. Okay, so from the vanishing point to here to get the roof, and then another straight line so I can see this is my last horizontal line, and I can just move my ruler across to make another horizontal line. And this house was set back a little more, and that goes to the vanishing point. I already had a little line there helping me. And then the top of the roof is a little higher, so I'm gonna go for my vanishing point to do that. And then I'm gonna make these lines all parallel to each other. This is the line I made up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do when I do stuff like that, not that I encourage you to make things up, but you know, just for our purposes here where we're just learning perspective, I'm gonna keep those parallel just to make it all look correct, as if it's in the same world. So all these lines going that way are parallel, and then I have this guy. I need to make it a little longer, and that would connect here. So this is the roof going down like that. And then it comes back. Again, this would have yet another vanishing point, so you can see how it gets a little tricky. There, that's that taller building behind this long building. Here's another roof. I'll make the roof stark like this so you can see how this is all coming together. Now I'm just gonna simplify this quite a bit because there is a lot going on with all these different buildings, and that is your choice too. You can simplify as much as you want because I think, as you can see, this can take a really long time. So again, I'm gonna use this angle that I created that looked right to me, and I'm gonna just slide my ruler, keeping it at that same angle and making this. And it's great to draw over the edge of your outline, because then you know if you're getting it all in the right place. And I'll make the side of this building, and this has some crazy double roof, which I am just not gonna mess with. And that's your choice in your drawing, right? You can choose what to do and what not to do, and what's gonna make sense for you. So here's the roof for that taller one. And then you can start adding things like windows. So what I usually start pretty light, and I think it's good to start from the bottom. So I'll just do one on the one closest to us. So it looks like there's taller windows on the bottom. So I'm gonna make that line. And then there's gonna be the second floor. So I'm always staying with my vanishing point, and I'm just moving my ruler up a little bit from the vanishing point. So I'm like pivoting. So this is where a see-through ruler comes in handy. So that's the first floor where the windows or doors are longer. This is gonna be the second floor. And then I think there's more than 3, but again, I'm taking my artistic license here. I'm doing the stone building in the image, and I am making it so it works for my drawing. Okay, so now all these are going to be exactly vertical, and they're going to be parallel to your other vertical lines here. So you can come to your other vertical line and just slide it over because it should be parallel to the side of this building. And all of these will be in the same spot. This goes down to the bottom. You can, of course, take your time to measure these and get them the right exact size. Sometimes with demos, I go a little fast and it's not perfect, but you know, perfection doesn't exist. So trying for it is just exhausting because it doesn't exist, and there's already a photo of it. We want to see the handmade drawing of it. You know, the photo already exists. You don't have to make it perfect like the photo. You're making your version of it. Okay, so I'm coloring these in just so you can see. It just helps me see what all the shapes are and how they look. Okay, so obviously you're gonna keep going on this. Get the vanishing point and the 1 point perspective in there and get all the elements in. This is a composition thumbnail sketch, so it doesn't have to be perfect, of course. Okay, my next one is also from Ireland, and it's the Cliffs of Moher. They're beautiful. This is on the west coast of Ireland. I feel lucky to still be connected to my family there and get to go visit. Okay, so I'm eyeballing this. I'm looking at the negative space, and then this part, the cliffs, are really my 1 point perspective. So on the top, I'm looking at the negative space. On the top, it's not going down too much, but on the bottom, it's sort of a severe angle to the end. And there's a lot of inlets and coves and stuff, but I'm starting with this big shape, just like we were doing with the still lifes and everything else. You're breaking it down into big shapes, and it ends here. So I'm looking at this negative shape, and this is the basic shape of it. We could make a vanishing point if you feel like your lines are in the right place. And I'm using this paper where I'm folding it over a lot. So I'm gonna call this cityscape. So when I fold the paper over, I know which is which. So you could have, 4 different vanishing points on here. So this is gonna go off the side of the paper, so I definitely need it. I'm going to tape. And the first thing I'm gonna do is mark. This is actually, I have it lined up with the top, which is nice. This is where the bottom is. Paper. I just make little notes for myself. And I'll write comp here because I know this is my composition lines. So that might seem like overkill, but you never know if it's like something you want to make into a really big drawing. You might want to work this out over and over again. Find the best way to do it. Okay, so I'm just again tracing these lines. So I eyeballed them, I sketched them, and now I'm tracing the basic line to find the vanishing point. I'll call this cliffs, so I know what it is. And now with these little inlets, like there's one part of the cliffs, like they go in like that. And then there's one part that comes out really far. And that's kind of it even goes up. So you can use your vanishing point to make sure you're getting the right angles. Now this angle is not going to go back to the vanishing point because it's going in this way. That would probably have another vanishing point. But you can make sure you're getting like up here that that would be like that. And then you can kind of get the corner here and know, okay, this line from here to here is how far out this is. So nothing else is going to go further because there's another bit that comes out too, but it's not as far out as this. So we can use the vanishing point to tell us, okay, I know that this furthest part of the cliff is all the way out here. Here's the vanishing point line. I know this is going to be inside of it. And then the opposite, if something is popping out of it, you can say, okay, I know that's going to go over that point. So that's why I call them like guidelines. Okay, so I'm just going to get the big shapes in here. There's this big opening. If anyone gets to visit here, it is just spectacular and beautiful, but also very windy. Okay, so I'm just getting the big shapes in, and all these vertical lines are going to be pretty much parallel, but then you can add the little squiggles and stuff to them. And then this goes in, so it's okay if it goes in too, comes out. And then I'm just making some of these. And then there's another cave in here that I don't want to forget, a smaller cave. So this is really how I start my drawings. I'm working stuff out. I'm not getting too much into detail. I'm seeing the shape of things, and it's a lot more complicated than it looks, right? I'm just pulling out, like, there's this kind of backwards S shape, and then there's another shape in here, and then there's some cliffs that kind of stick out here. So I want to make sure to get that shape included. And then there's another sort of ridge line. There's a lot of these vertical ridge lines. And then the grass, this is another cool feature. The grass in the foreground is blowing out, which will be fun to draw and exaggerate. I'm not going to draw any of the clouds. Let's see. So that's the composition drawing for that. I did want to show you an interior, which I don't have a photo for, but if you wanted to do like the corner of a room or anything like that, let's think about a room in 1 point perspective. So I'm going to draw the back wall. Just say this is like a room with 4 walls. So the back wall is going to be like a rectangle or square like we've been doing. And I'm actually going to get it right in the middle of this box. So let me do this first. Okay, so I'm making an X through the box. Here, I'll start over here again on this one. Starting again is always good. I'm making an X on the box to find the center, kind of like how we folded the paper. Oops, that's what's wrong. It keeps coming off of here. Okay. From corner to corner. So this is my vanishing point. And then I can make parallel lines. And they're perpendicular from the bottom of my composition box. So that's why sometimes having this right angle is very helpful, because I can position one here. And okay, I'm not doing this exactly, but you can measure yours. I know it's not going to be perfect, but here we go. We have, oh, this is what happens when I talk and draw. Let me just connect these because that's looking better. Okay, so we have, this is the back wall, and then we have a ceiling, floor, and walls, which I'll point out to you. Okay, so this is the ceiling. This is the floor. This is a wall, wall. And then I'm going to erase these so you can see how this is the back wall. I think it'll start making sense more when I put some furniture in. Okay, let me make these a little darker so you can see. So this is the ceiling, this shape up here. This is a side wall. This is the floor. And this is another side wall here. Now, let's say you want to make like a dresser here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on this side. I'm going to start with the part of the dresser that is not in perspective, just like we did when we were practicing. So let's say this dresser comes out this much from the wall. So this is the floor. So the dresser would be on the floor and it's leaning up against the wall. So that's why I know it's in this is like where the wall and the floor meet. And now I can take my ruler and go from the vanishing point and make the top of the dresser, the bottom of the dresser, and then the sides will be parallel to this. So you can decide how wide you want to make it. And I'm going to erase the floor, even though I made it really dark. Okay, so we have the front of our dresser, the side facing us that is not in perspective, and since we're below, this would be the eye level line, right? Because this is the vanishing point. We're gonna see a bit of the top, and these are where some funny angles come in. So the vanishing point really helps. And then this line back here, this is where, this kind of connection is where most students get in trouble because they might just draw it like that. But in fact, it's parallel to this line, this other horizontal line. So I'm taking my ruler here and I'm slowly getting it to the right place, connecting this corner to there. So that is the correct angle. And I know this angle is very much not a big angle. It's like very wide angle. So that's how it wouldn't be the way you drew it by sight. So this is why the vanishing point helps. And you can do this to make books, bookshelves, really anything you want. And then you can put little knobs for your dresser, and that's it. So you could keep adding things in. Maybe I'll do one more item on here. Maybe I'll do a bookshelf. I'm gonna lighten up this line a little bit, and I'm gonna make it a different color just to make sure you can see what's happening. Okay, so first thing I'm doing is I'm starting with the side of this bookshelf that is not in perspective. So it's going to be sitting on the floor, and then it's at a right angle up the wall because it's leaning, it's on the floor up against the wall. And I'm just deciding how big I want this bookshelf to be. Now I'm taking from each corner the same way we've been doing, taking it to the vanishing point. And this is almost exactly on the vanishing point, so we're not going to see the top of it at all because it's coming from this corner to the vanishing point and from this corner down here to the vanishing point. And then this line that connects these two vanishing point lines is going to be parallel, vertically parallel to the first lines we drew. So you can decide how big your bookshelf is. And it should also be parallel to this line. And then to make the shelves, you just pivot from the vanishing point, and they're gonna go like that. So if you have a pile of books, if you have anything you want to create in perspective, you can do it this way. And then the books, would live in here. So we're keeping it simple. If you need to leave some stuff out, that's totally okay. If you have a lot of circular things in your room, you can leave them out. If you decide to do your room in perspective, you can do a simple hallway. You can do the same thing with a hallway, and the 1 point perspective being, off to the side, and you can do any photos or doors you have in the hallway. One more thing I forgot to mention, don't forget to number your drawings so we can talk about them in the class discussion. So find something that you're excited to work with, you'll want to work with this week and next week, and have fun with it.